sharp, sickening crack echoed across the vast, sterile electronic showroom. Smack! The low hum of the store's ambience died instantly, replaced by a sudden, collective silence. Everyone froze. A young salesman, barely out of college, had just struck an elderly man with such force that the victim stumbled several feet back, crashing into a high-gloss display counter. The old man's reading glasses spun and slid across the polished tile floor like two shattered coins. Phones were out immediately, the modern reflex. People recording, others snickering, a few whispering in prurient delight. "Don't touch the displays again, old beggar!" the salesman roared, his voice pitched high with adrenaline and contempt, ensuring the insult carried clearly across the showroom floor. The old man gripped the edge of the counter, steadying his frame, breathing heavily and deeply, but remaining utterly silent. Nobody in that store knew who he was. Nobody knew why he had come. Nobody knew that the events of the next 5 minutes would utterly annihilate that salesman's job, his reputation, and the trajectory of his immediate future. And the most shocking part to the onlookers? The old man didn't utter a single word in retaliation. He simply bent, slowly retrieved his shattered glasses and walked away. This was not the beginning of his humiliation. It was the quiet prelude to his ultimate victory. The old man's name was Harvey Dalton, age 67. He was a retired heavy-duty mechanic from the working heart of Amarillo, Texas. He was a man whose calloused, competent hands had rebuilt and repaired countless engines over 40 hard years. A man who possessed the rare skill of being able to listen to the irregular cough of a machine and immediately tell its entire mechanical history. He was a man who never needed to raise his voice to be heard, and certainly never had to beg for respect. That afternoon, he had walked into Tech World Superstore, the shining, chrome and glass temple of technology, the largest electronic showroom in the city. He wasn't there for himself. He wanted to purchase a powerful new laptop for his granddaughter, who had just secured a full scholarship to college but lacked the funds for the necessary equipment. But the moment he stepped inside the bright, cold light, people stared. They judged his faded brown work jacket, his old denim jeans creased with decades of labor, his dusty, oil-stained work boots. He was a piece of grit in the gleaming machine of the showroom. He didn't fit the aesthetic. To the staff, he didn't look like a potential customer. He looked like a liability, a potential problem. Harvey walked slowly toward the newest, most aspirational laptop on display. A sleek, impossibly thin silver marvel marketed as the Titan X. He reached out and touched the keyboard, his movement gentle, curious. That was his only mistake. From directly behind him, a sharp voice erupted, laced with immediate hostility. Hey! Absolutely do not touch that. Before Harvey could even register the threat and turn around, the blow landed. Smack! The flat of the salesman's hand struck his face with terrible velocity. The crowd gasped. Some were horrified. More were simply entertained. Harvey staggered violently backward, instinctively clamping a hand over his stinging cheek. His ears rang loudly, and his vision momentarily swam. The salesman, full of aggressive arrogance, stepped closer, leaning in as if delivering a final judgment. "This is not a public library or a museum, old man," he sneered, his tone dripping with superiority. "You want to look at things? Go watch YouTube on your broken phone." Another employee, eager to join the abuse, shouted across the aisle. "He probably just came here for the free Wi-Fi, right?" Waves of cheap laughter filled the high-ceiling showroom. Harvey listened to the insults. He quietly swallowed the humiliation. He didn't defend himself because he understood a fundamental truth. Dignity is often loudest in absolute silence. He carefully picked up his glasses and walked out of the opulent store. But he did not go home defeated. He crossed the busy thoroughfare to the opposite side of the street, where a tiny, unassuming storefront stood quietly. Brightbyte Computers. It was a small shop with peeling paint and a worn sign, but a tangible warm light spilled out onto the pavement, a light that suggested human kindness. A young man stood inside, maybe 19 or 20 years old. He smiled immediately and gently the moment he saw Harvey approach. "Good afternoon, sir," the young man said respectfully, his demeanor open and genuine. "How can I help you today?" Harvey pointed through the glass to a modest, reliable-looking laptop. "I'd like to know," he asked softly, "is that model dependable enough for serious college studies?" The boy nodded enthusiastically and kindly. "Yes, sir, absolutely. It's fast, reliable, and perfectly suited for students who need to rely on it. Would you like to come in and try it out?" There was no slap, no sneer, no judgment, only patience and respect. Harvey sat down at the small counter. The laptop worked beautifully. After a whole hour of patient, detailed demonstrations, explaining features, answering every hesitant question, the young man finally asked, "So, sir, based on what we've seen, would you like to buy it?" Harvey didn't answer immediately. He looked slowly around the small, tidy shop, soaking in the quiet atmosphere of decency. Finally, he spoke, his voice low and firm. "You treated me like a human being. That matters more than you know." The boy smiled shyly, slightly embarrassed by the compliment. Harvey cleared his throat, adjusting his posture. "I came here today intending to buy one laptop," he stated. The boy nodded, waiting. "But after how those people treated me across the street..." Harvey paused, his gaze hardening as he looked back towards the glittering superstore. "I've changed my mind. I'll take 12 laptops, all in cash." The young man froze entirely, his eyes widening in shock. 12? He managed to stammer. Harvey Dalton offered a small, knowing smile. "Yes. One for my granddaughter, and 11 others for kids at her school who have secured scholarships but simply cannot afford the technology. You, young man, have earned this business." He reached into his coat and pulled out a thick, heavy envelope. The boy stared blankly at the stack of high-denomination bills. He had never seen so much money all at once in his entire life. 2 hours later, every single model in stock was gone. 12 laptops were sold and bagged, the transaction complete. Across the street, the arrogant salesman watched the flurry of activity at the small shop from his showroom window. His jaw dropped slowly. His face went ghastly pale as realization dawned. Moments later, his furious boss stormed out of the back office, yelling loud enough to stop the music. "Do you have any idea who that man is? That's Harvey Dalton. He owns half the goddamn auto garages in this county, and he's famous for his regional charity work. You just violently assaulted a local millionaire philanthropist. You utterly useless idiot." The salesman began to shiver uncontrollably, his arrogance collapsing into cold terror. By the time the showroom opened the next morning, he was already gone. Respect is always free. Arrogance, however, has a catastrophic price tag.